Welcome. Camp 3 News. It's been a couple of weeks. Apologies. I've been wrapped up with pub stuff.
I know you've been a very busy person. Welcome, Cheryl.
Hello, everybody.
How are we doing? Are we all right?
Back. We were hoping that Sandi would be able to make it today, but we've got a feeling she hasn't been able to connect. So if she can connect, she will halfway during the programme. But if not, then Sandi will be back very soon.
Yeah.
Well, what's going on then, Ant?
What's not going on, Debbie, is more. It'd be easier to talk about what's not going on. There's the ramping stuff up. That's what I can see. We always said that 2025, 2026 was going to be an interesting period, and Belfast. So Belfast last night was. So I don't know what you guys. We'll talk about it. I think we need to talk about it. You know, there was obviously some footage that went around on social media of what would be an absolutely hideous attack on an individual from a Sudanese gentleman. I'm not going to say gentleman because he's certainly not gentle. He was a beast, a devil, a demon that no human being could do something like that to another human being. Now, I wasn't there, so I don't know what was happening. We see a bit of grainy footage on video. I question a lot of things, but you know, if this is a true, real incident, this is horrific. And we are, as often in this strange world that we find ourselves in, pawns on a chessboard, and they play, the controllers of this place, or this realm that we're in, certainly play a very long game and distract us and frighten us and keep us in packs. And what we're seeing now is a tribal. Our genetics kick in, especially as men, protectors of our kids and our families and our friends, our loved ones, and you will start seeing vigilante moments like we witnessed last night, because it's natural in us. They know how to do that. People will react rather than respond generally. And what do you do when you feel like you are under so much pressure, which is in my opinion, an engineered migration crisis? And yeah, so what do you think? I mean, I was witnessing some stuff last night. The fires were going off, and it's not surprising. The only thing that surprised me is that it took so long to actually happen, because this has been going on for quite a few years. I'm not talking about the incident we saw, but this engineered migration issue, where you know, females are being assaulted, kids have been assaulted, there's people are feeling like they're in danger. But we've got another side of it as well, guys, and that's your Tommy Robinsons of this world that are pushing the uprising. So I look at it in all angles. I'm trying to sit back and look at it in all angles, and there's a fear being created. There's an anger being created on another side, and where's it leading? And I see digital ID. That's where I see it.
I agree. I completely agree. Well, for the record, I mean, I thought the attack, and as you say, the attack was absolutely, it was savage, right? And I couldn't look at the footage because I know that once you see, you can't unsee. And maybe some people will say that I should have seen it, but I just couldn't. It was very interesting. I think it's now been released that the victim is a man called Stephen Ogilvie, who was a vulnerable man, learning disabled, Scottish of origin. He was living in social housing, and this Sudanese attacker had only moved there a month ago. One week ago. Now, Stephen Ogilvie, as I understand it, has lost an eye and is now blind in his right eye. And from what I also hear, and this is from X mainly, is that the locals would look after him, would not look after him, but would watch his back because they knew that he was vulnerable. So this is absolutely shocking beyond belief. I think the government were very quick, weren't they, during COVID to lock everybody up, and they came up with emergency powers. And we know that the government are capable of using emergency powers when they want to. And excuse me, but I would strongly suggest to our Prime Minister that he impose emergency powers immediately to close our borders immediately. Clearly, I agree with you. This is just adding fuel to the fire with the whole immigration debate, of which I think we'll probably have to devote a whole programme to at some point, and the whole immigration situation. I think it also pointed yesterday, worryingly, to I was listening to MPs in the House of Commons who were more worried about the language that was being used because of the condemnation that Rupert Lowe was saying that, you know, we need to bring back death penalty basically for these people. And Nigel Farage came out with a very hard statement. And I was really shocked to hear some MPs defending those that are doing these attacks and condemning those that are using this kind of language. So that was very concerning. And I think you're absolutely right. Of course, this is all pointing to digital ID. Of course, it's all pointing to surveillance. Everything's being staged as well. So we don't know who is who and who's doing what. But what I would say is, whilst the government seemed very quick to impose this restriction on under 16-year-olds for social media, we know kids get around everything. We know they'll get around it. And now he's saying under 18s. I suggest, Sir Keir Starmer, you look after our children on the streets, because they're not safe on the streets. So while you might be worried about online, and we're all worried about online, let's look after them out on the streets, because it's a dangerous place to be right now. And I think everybody needs to be vigilant of what's going on around them. Too many of us go, you know, we go out, we do what we've got to do. We head for the supermarket, we head for the school to pick up the kids. And we don't see what's going on around us. When we're buried in our phones, we're walking, we've got our heads down, we're not watching what's going on around us. And I think now is the time that we need to be watching what's going on around us. And quite clearly, the country, and Belfast in particular, is absolutely tension central. And last night I thought it was very interesting the way that the locals suddenly locked down their own areas. So North Belfast, East Belfast, West Belfast, they locked their own areas down, and they told many YouTubers, Cozzy was there, Sploosh was there, Danny Tomo was there, but they asked them all not to film. No cameras behind their barriers for the protests whatsoever. And yet Sky, they've got a helicopter in the sky. And of course there were fires breaking out, but they were all isolated incidents all around. So they outran the police. There was nothing the police could do. They didn't know where to go first. So I think the whole system that they're using in Northern Ireland of the locals locking their own areas down is very interesting. Cheryl, what do you think?
Who filmed the attack? I mean,
good question.
I mean, that's like voyeurism, isn't it? If it's somebody stood on the ground watching it happen, who actually filmed that attack? I know that it's a route in through Southern Ireland through to Northern Ireland. This guy's been here, I think, since 23 when he was given status to stay. Who made that decision? What's that based on? I don't get these decisions that are being made. I mean, to me, I've always said, if I go in another country and haven't got my passport with me, they won't let me in. Other people throw theirs over the side of a boat and come in and can stay. If you haven't got your documents, you should be straight out, go. You know, it should be stopped. It needs to be stopped. And I just feel that this poor man, obviously, I mean, it goes back to, what was his name, Rigby, who had...
Lee Rigby.
Yeah. I mean, that's the start in my head of all these sorts of attacks happening. But when the MPs are talking about language and what have you, they didn't defend the young white girls in every town, it seems, that were gang raped. They haven't gone after those people like they should have done. Keir Starmer hasn't, through his public prosecutions, done anything about that. It's to me, the whole system has just failed.
It's designed to fail. It's designed. The whole collapse is it's a controlled demolition that we're seeing in our country and in the Western world. It's a controlled demolition, so they can bring in the systems they want to bring in to control populations digitally. It's just, you can see it a mile off, but it's like, what do you do about it is the thing. It's so tricky.
It's really easy. That's the thing. It's so easy. And I keep saying to people, although it's impossible, it's easy, but it's impossible. What it means is for every single one of us to drop our devices, come off the internet, carry on doing our own thing, not listening or even anything to do with what's going on. But that's not going to happen, is it? Because everyone's now the addiction. You know, people talk about drug addictions, people talk about alcohol addiction, chocolate addiction, food addiction. But this addiction to technology, this addiction to the internet, this addiction to your phones, this addiction to being constantly connected, to being barraged by news all the time, I don't know if we've got an antidote to that, apart from we all have to literally go cold turkey and throw our devices, all of them, including us, away.
It's not going to happen, though. I mean, no. We've got to be realistic. We'd struggle at our tender ages, but the youngsters are definitely not going to throw their technology away. It won't happen. They know this. It's this thing here has been one of the most insidious inventions ever. And it's worked incredibly well. I operate my business from this phone. You know, this is the thing. I'm constantly on the phone when I'm not behind the bar working. I'm constantly dealing with emails, paying bills, dealing with a WhatsApp group for staff. It's become a way of life, and it's been very clever. It's very, and I've said this for years. It's very, very clever. We're not going to chuck it away. The problem being now is that the technology is being ramped up. They knew when they released this stuff where this was heading, and we didn't. We've been, walking onto the tightrope to the end of a cliff for such a long time, not realizing that the likes of Palantir is literally going to round us all up. We would never.
Has already rounded us up.
Yeah.
We've been on the streets. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? We've been on the streets talking to people locally, taking a town at a time, to find out how many people believe in digital ID, how many people go for it. And the vast majority, it's about 80%, tell us they're dead against it. They're dead against it. Now, it's very easy to say that and be very, very difficult to do anything about it, isn't it? Because obviously everything is leading that way. But the whole thing is totally insecure. The whole thing, there's hacking going on everywhere. It's so easy with these terrible systems. It's a bit like the post office scandal. It's very difficult to actually use a system like this, because you're giving away, like you say, in Palantir, you're giving away your data to whoever. But a lot of, like the Gov1 login, that's been hacked. That had a red alert, that had a red test or something, whatever it was called, so that the hackers came along to hack it, and they hacked it, and the administrators didn't even know they were being hacked.
Of course, and the thing is, when you've got biometrics on that, and that's hackable, you cannot. Once that's duplicate, that's the most personal information you could possibly give. Is and once a hacker's got hold of that, you're knackered. You're screwed. They've got access to absolutely everything. Your bank.
Let's take ourselves back though, Ant. Giving you fingerprints when I was a kid was absolutely a sign of shame. I mean, because the only time you ever got your fingerprints taken was if you were arrested or if you were cautioned or if you were charged with something.
That's right.
So the last thing you'd want to do, and this is what I don't understand. I don't understand how in my generation it was, you do not give your fingerprints. Absolutely not. And if you do, that's going to be on a database. But now everybody's volunteering this Face ID. And what are you going to do?
They're so used to doing that on the phone, aren't they?
Yeah.
The thing is, they're all using it. I mean, I haven't got my financial details on my phone.
No, I haven't.
Telling me it's not set up properly because that's the thing I haven't set up. I mean, I still send checks out when I can, which I know makes me very old-fashioned, but I'm trying to, in my own little way, buck the system. I'm trying to upset them, and we need to use cash.
We do, and we must continue to do so. But what we've got to look at is the generations that are coming through. That's where the normalization, what's happening now. We're on that cusp, and we've seen, because we've gone through the 70s, 80s, 90s periods and the early 2000s, and then start witnessing the change of technology. We are the ones that can see through it. The kids that are born into this now, they won't know any different. So they're going to be born into systems. Seriously, it's just 1984, isn't it? It's just literally there. And
they're digitalising babies now, aren't they? When they're born, instead of having a birth certificate, you digitalise.
Well, exactly.
That's one of the things we've been telling people.
And we can see it. That what happened last night, what's happened in this horrendous incident, is purely designed to do that, because they're already calling out. Ed Davey this morning calls out that we need to crack down on platforms like X for fueling violence. This is where it's heading. They want to control the narrative on social media. So they're already announcing that under 16-year-olds, under 18-year-olds will need, to prove that they're how old they are before they can access social media.
Which is all of us, because you'll have to prove
all of us. Of course it is. So we're all going to need ID to access the platforms that we are now addicted to. And they knew that we were going to get addicted to the likes of Facebook and X and everything else. It's been so clever. It's the devil's work. It's incredible, really. If you could sit on the fence and you could watch this as a movie, you're like, my God, this is the most devious. Watch it through 2020, the way they did that. Track and trace, they're normalizing it. They're normalizing it back then, getting people ready, and it will just become a way of life.
But track and trace didn't work. I mean, did you ever do anything with track and trace?
No, but it didn't work then, but it will work in generations to come unless the likes
I don't think they've got the system set up right. I really don't think anything is working right, because it's all done by different departments and what have you.
Yeah, but you've got to remember, Cheryl, that they're far ahead. They're much far ahead than they're letting on. China's provinces, or certain provinces, as we know, have got a social crediting systems in place. Once they've got that in place, and it controls your money, and you can't access your money without behaving, you're knackered. You're knackered. Yeah. They don't need to police anything. They don't need prisons. You're in your own, because you can't do anything. You can't buy anything. You can't go anywhere, because you've got driverless taxis that are going to be. They've already announced that in London, that driverless taxis are going to.
I won't be getting in one, will you?
No.
But that begs the question, though, folks. Bearing in mind that the latest iPhone will have an Israeli chip in it, and they're calling them spy devices, right? So it's in your face. But my question to everybody watching, and thank you for all your comments, but my question to everybody watching and to both of you is, if in 2 weeks Keir Starmer pulls it off, which we know he will, and he says that everybody has to do age verification in order to access the internet, are you going to do it?
Yeah, it's a damn good question, Debbie, because I can't run my business without it.
Cheryl?
And that's the point.
I'm waiting for the person to come up and give you the reason. There's always ways around it. It's like banning kids from using it under 16. They will find ways of using it. When
it comes to money, you've got access. They're removing the banks, as we know, in the high streets. They don't. I go into my bank on a Friday to put cash in. to get a float for the weekend or whatever. They don't have, like when back in the day, you used to go and you used to be cashiers would be there behind the glass and everything. They have two people that access the situation with cash now, and they have a machine that they put the money in. They don't have the glass and all this lot. They don't have the manpower to deal with it.
They don't have the cash on site either. So if you go in, and that's if you're allowed to get the cash, you have to go through the Spanish Inquisition if you want a couple of £1,000. What do you want it for? Who are you paying? What and then they tell you, oh, well, this branch doesn't store cash. Now, doesn't this remind you of Mary Poppins? Do you remember Mary Poppins and the scene where they're hammering on the bank? We want money, we want money. Well, of course, now the banks have disappeared. So you can't go into a physical bank and do that. And even when you do, you know that the bank doesn't have any cash, and they're talking about taxing cash. So that when you go and pay for something and it's £5, for example, oh no, you're going to have to pay £5.50 or £6 because they're talking about taxing cash. And every time you use cash, eventually, I'm saying I use cash everywhere. And I think it's important to use cash on transactions as well, because they're tracking and tracing. And who did you give this to? And why did you give that person that money? And for what reason? It's a complete intrusion. And you're going to see the first thing.
Or using his cash. They'll be charging him for taking that cash into the bank, won't they?
And if everybody went to the ATM to pull out 50 quid, if say there was you need cash, the system is going down, so everybody wants to get cash out while they can. There's not enough notes in circulation to give everybody 50 quid.
Hence why.
Bear that in mind.
Well, it's exactly that, Debbie. So hence why everything is going to go digital. So once you control the money, you're only going to be able to control your money right through your device.
Yeah. How are you going to get fuel for your car?
But it's very clever. It's very, very, very clever. It's a slow game. But when you say, are you going to, the people watching, and are you going to put your details through the phone? People are going to have to. They won't have a choice.
Or else we will have an environment like Savage Lands out of Brave New World, where you do have people like me, because I'll be disappearing from the internet. I'm not going to do it. I'm quite an extremist, really. I'm not going to do it unless I find, like Cheryl said, unless I find a loophole. Because so far I haven't got apps. I haven't got anything on my phone. I've got no financial data. I don't have the NHS app. I've stayed well away from it. I don't give fingerprints or facial I don't do any of it. I steer away from as many cameras. I've got a really old car that doesn't have a sat nav. I'm really basic, folks. And at the end of the day, will I give it? No, I don't think I will. And in that case, then I'm going to be locked out of the system. So in that case, it's going to be self-preservation society for me.
Which is going to be really tricky, because there's only so many that would do that. When you've got all the youngsters won't. No. I can't imagine many youngsters would go down that route.
No. As I say, asking people on the street, I was surprised how many younger people. And if you point out to people with babies about the babies' digitalisation, they get very worried.
Yeah, but they're still. But if in 2 weeks' time, if they're told that the only way to access their benefits, or the only way to access milk for their baby or food for their baby, is through giving age verification, they're going to do it.
It's like the 8 million directors who threw Companies House, which is absolutely terrible in terms of being a system. That they had to do digital verification. There were ways around that, because there are firms that actually verify you and pass the verification number, because they've been assessed some time ago by Companies House to be able to do this, and you can do it that way. It costs you, but there are ways around it. I'm not saying that's the best way ever, but it stopped us having to actually sign up as they wanted us to. So the more people, we've got all these hackers, haven't we? They've got loads and loads of more intelligent people than the people who are setting up the systems. And they need to come to the fore and tell us how to do it.
Yeah, but you know what? We're looking at hacking of phones, right? And we're looking at hacking of devices. But like I've said, your phone in the future is going to be integrated into your body. So everything that you've got on your iPhone or your Android phone at the moment, your banking details, your health details, is going to be chips, or you're going to have a neural band. It's going to be implanted into your body, so that in the end, they're going to be able to hack you.
do, Debbie. It doesn't mean that there's a number of people out there that will go for that. I mean, in Sweden,
already loads are.
I know
there was a comment earlier about Sweden. This has been going on ages.
Yeah, but lots of people won't do it. There's so many more of us, and we just need to keep saying no. It's got to be no.
But on playing devil's advocate, like Ant said earlier, you and I and Ant, we get that. But it's the youngsters that have become addicted to this. Then if you do offer them a chip that will enable them to speak 20 languages or to communicate with people wherever, or a special device upgrading, I guarantee you, if they want it, they'll get it. And whether it's an electronic tattoo or whether it's an implant, whether it's a chip, whatever it is, they will go for it. It's the youngsters, wearable devices for the kids. What could go wrong? Exactly. Only it's not going to be wearable in the future. It's going to be implantable.
It is. And I think I'm just trying to find what I read the other day, where China have kind of tipped Elon Musk, and they've already got in front of him.
They've got you ahead of him.
Yeah, they've got in front of him. So, and there's quite an interesting article here in the New York Post, actually, where they've already got the first brain chip,
and it's actually less invasive, the Chinese one.
Well, this is the thing. So they're gonna. This is going to be sold really well to a younger generation that want to keep up with. Humanity is always about keeping up with the Joneses. That's how this commercialism works. It's like you always want to be with everybody else, don't you? Everyone wants the new phone. Everyone wants a new car. Everyone's going to want the new upgrade soon. And that's really worrying. We're on the cusp of the next major transition, the merger of humans and AI. It's happening.
Yeah, it really is. And, one big critic of Elon Musk's Neuralink is Dr. James Giordano. And people that have followed me for a while know that I'm very interested in what Dr. James Giordano says. And he knows the whole transhumanist agenda. And he says that Elon Musk's Neuralink was never properly tested and it's not safe. And if we look at what's coming out of China's innovations are beyond that. I mean, everything that's coming out of China, the longevity, never being able to die. You can raise your loved ones from the dead and speak to them in forms of avatar. You can teleport. I mean, the technology and the innovation that's coming out of China is I gasp for breath sometimes when I see what's happening. So, I think we've got to keep a very close eye on everything, to be honest. And I go back to the original question of, if you've got to give this data, are you going to give it, or are you going to actually say no? And I don't think the youngsters are going to say no. I think they're going to go ahead with it because, like you said, Ant, right from the get-go, it's normal for them. They're going to be brought up with these systems. They're going to think that they're not going to know the world that we lived in.
I do firmly believe in the human spirit. I will say that. I think humanity is heading for an almighty crash at the moment, but I do think it won't be in our lifetime. I don't think, but we will see that rise again. But at the moment, it's the devil's playground at the moment. This world and the technocrats have took over. The fourth industrial revolution, that stuff was coming out with Matt Hancock back in 2020, and I remember throwing it at people at the time saying, "This is what it's about, guys. This is what it's about," and they laughed out of town for that. What are you talking about, Ant? But this is happening. This morning on Good Morning TV, Ed Balls is dancing with a robot on TV. They are bringing forward the normalization of the merger of man and machine. It's from my studies over the past few years with Stellify and the darkness of what these people are involved in. This is magic.
It is magic. It really is. The Artilect War. I keep talking about it. I've got the book. It's amazing. It's the most terrifying, dangerous book that I've ever read in my whole life. The Artilect War, by a man that nobody's ever heard of, called Professor Hugo de Garis. This is probably, you know, we think Yuval Noah Harari and we think all of these globalists like Peter Thiel are dangerous. No, folks, go look at Professor Hugo de Garis. He is the godfather of the artificial brain. He knows that humanity, as we know, will be destroyed, including his grandchildren. He's really worried about it, but he's carrying on with it anyway because he wants to be the godfather of the Artilect, the new AI god. So this is where we're heading, and it's terrifying reading stuff like this and knowing that somebody's actually out there trying to do it. And like you said, they're light years ahead of us. DARPA, anything that you see on the DARPA website is probably about 10 or 12 years old, I've been told.
Yeah, they're so far ahead. I mean, look at the advance of AI itself in the past few years alone. They're so far ahead.
AGI next. Agentic. That's for Sandi. We'll get Sandi to talk about agentic AI because that's terrifying.
Absolutely. You know, just keeping on. All this merges into the same topic for me. You know, we're talking about the issue, the migration issue. We're talking about the situation where this Henry Novak young lad was stabbed allegedly by a Sikh and his ceremonial knife, now dagger. Now we don't know if he's a real Sikh or not. I don't know, and I wasn't there either again, so I don't know what really happened apart from the footage that we are shown, which was shown months later. So I question, why is that being shown now? And then you get the Belfast thing shortly after that as well. I'm just, you know, I question things in terms of, because of the research I've done in terms of Stellify, you know, there is magic in this place, and there's controllers that know how to use it and manipulate it. And the words of I Can't Breathe, which had George Floyd ringing all over it again, which was again magic leading into COVID when people were wearing masks. Now, I'm not saying that anything, I don't know, but it just brought red flags to me again. You know, I'm not saying that this incident didn't happen either, but what it will do is fuel fire. We've got an incompetent prime minister, a very weak government. We've got a very weak shadow situation in Parliament as well. They're all pathetic, the lot of them, and it's by purpose because you've got no faith in any of them. The police are weak. And now we're seeing where people have got no faith or no respect for any of this. And it's all by design, because the digital infrastructure, you won't need them.
You know, it was interesting because there was a post on X, and it said, if you met your 18-year-old self, what 3 words would you say to yourself? And as normal, you know what people are like on X. They put whole paragraphs. But I stuck to the question, and my answer would be question absolutely everything.
Yeah. All the time. I mean, it's awful to say it, but I mean, we're getting to the point where we can't, and they want that as well. That's the other frustrating part of all this, because AI is so good in terms of what it can produce that you won't know what's real or not. And but they want that as well.
Of course they do. Confusion, fear, anxiety, stress, all the negative emotions, all the emotions that create energy.
Yeah.
Energy. It's all about energy. It's all about vibration. It's all about frequency. And if you're continually frightening people, if you're continually putting them under stress, you're continually emotionally traumatizing them and psychologically screwing up their mental health, then this is what you're going to get. And you're seeing signs like this in Belfast, because in this country, in the United Kingdom, the police have failed. The social services have failed. The public services have failed. The government has failed. The courts have failed. The justice system has failed. And when everything collapses and when everything fails, and then you get incidents like you did in Belfast last night, and which I'm sure we'll see moving forward as well, hopefully not, but I expect we will, then what do you expect? If the whole service has crumbled, if the whole system has collapsed, then people are going to take matters into their own hands. Yeah, historically, they always have. Why would now, 2026, be any different?
Because they know us well. We're very simple creatures. We just want a good, and you know, most people are good. Most people are good, and they just want to get on with their lives and enjoy lives. And they push buttons. You push enough buttons, you're going to get a reaction.
Of course.
And it's exactly it. As David Icke has always said it. Whatever people think of David Icke, he's dead on the money. Problem, reaction, solution. They've already got the solution. They're 20, 30 years ahead of us. So they've already got the solution. They want us to accept it.
And we're not acquiescing now. You see, this is all about, David Icke said, do not acquiesce. So now when people are, I mean, we're going to see vigilante groups. We already are seeing groups. I mean, there's groups in Bournemouth. There's groups all, I think there's one in Southampton. There's one at Crowborough. I saw interviews with them the other day. So there are locals that are taking it upon themselves to walk around these areas at night just to give the local communities some feeling of safety. And that includes all local communities. You know, the UK has been very welcoming of all sorts of people from different cultures and different countries for years and years and years. And we've all got on really well. You know, some of my best friends are mixed race. Some of them are Caribbean. Some of them are Muslim. We've all got on really, really well. There has been no problem. And yet there is now. So we are a very welcoming, patient population. But when everything collapses and you see that our culture is being absolutely savaged and that other cultures are coming in to take over our culture, you have to say to yourself, hang on a minute, when is enough enough? When do we stand up and say the government are not doing the will of the people anymore? Quite clearly they're not, and they're not listening, or they are, but they're carrying on anyway. But
they've got every angle covered. That's the problem, because what they do is then provide you with the hero, and that could be your Rupert Lowe's of the world, to provide the hero, because they're going to trust that democracy is nonsense. It doesn't work.
I question now all of these leaders. I've been saying for ages, you know, Trump is a master magician. And actually, Dan from Astrology World on YouTube, if you're interested, has gone right into that, in the art of magic and the art of astrology, and how the two are merging, and we're seeing what we're seeing at the moment. But maybe that's for another news, because I know Cheryl's got some news as well.
Well, I think we should get on to Cheryl, because what Cheryl's going to bring forward is important.
It's shocking, everybody. So listen carefully.
Do you want me to bring the slides on, Cheryl? Because we're going to talk about health now, and which is really important. And obviously, vaccines play a big part in.
Let me say something first, Dan.
Yeah.
You put them up. So there's a woman called Christine Park. She's a PhD cellular molecular biology. She's very, very good on this, and this was because her I think a baby was about 7 weeks old when she developed a brain abscess, and of course, so the initial vaccinations and what have you weren't done for her, so she then had time to have a look, and then they wanted to give this baby who'd been very, very ill, who'd recovered, vaccinations, and she fought against it and what have you. But what she knows is the critical development of the human brain occurs until 2 to 3 years old, and any acute inflammation that some of these inoculations can actually bring about, that will affect development. Okay, so there's an age range in which you should leave everything alone.
Can you repeat that, Cheryl? Because I think that's really important.
Can
you just repeat that?
The human brain, its critical development occurs until 2 to 3 years old. So anything you take, especially something that causes inflammation of the brain, which these inoculations can do, then you can actually affect the developing brain. And of course, we're giving these from birth onwards. The immune system is not developed enough to receive a vaccine. Okay, because you don't start getting immunity until about the age of 2. So obviously you give a vaccine to get your body, your immune system, to react to it and produce things against that particular thing. If your immune system isn't capable of doing that, you're kind of immunocompromised. What the heck would you give a vaccine for if you can't actually get a reaction to it? So that's the second thing. So anything given for 2 has got to be given more than once, because it's not going to be effective. That's another way that the pharma companies can make more money out of this. You've got to keep giving it, because it's not going to be effective as it is, because your brain and your immune system won't let it be. And what it will do is affect critical immune development and critical brain development by dysregulating the immune system. So that is the background that I think is very important. So babies can't make antibodies under the 1 year of age, and you've got no memory B cell immunity. So that's the bit where you obviously have a disease, you get better, you've got a memory immunity to that disease, and that serves you sometimes throughout life. You can't actually have that memory B cell immunity until you're more than 2 again. So in a way, everything you do up till 2 and perhaps a bit beyond is not going to have the effects you want it to have and can actually do damage. So that's the thing to be. One of the things that's good is breastfeeding, and how many people are now breastfeeding for a decent amount of time, because you as mum have got the same viruses and bacteria and all the things around you affecting you, and therefore, especially with bacteria, you're actually passing on your immunity because of your reaction to it through breast milk. So the baby gets protection because of the breast milk passing on immunity. So that's very, very important.
Can I also just add to that, that a baby, we've all got something called a thymus gland, which is kind of the central part of our SAS of the immune system, if you like. It produces T cells. And when you hear about T cells and people think, oh, where do they come from? They come from the thymus gland. And the thymus gland, it has amazing memory cells, killer cells, and anything that you get when you're a baby and when you're a child, it says, right, okay, you've been appointed as a killer cell, kill that infection immediately. And then someone else in the SAS brigade says, oh, I'm a memory cell, I can remember what that is for the rest of that child's life, so I can come and fight it again. And then there's an inflammation cell as well, and they go, oh, don't worry, we'll get the inflammation down. So this is the SAS, the thymus. Now when babies are born, they have a huge thymus, huge, and it's there specifically as their SAS of the immune system. So when you get older, aged about 12, 14, the thymus shrinks. So when you're my age, your age as well, the thymus is just like a little shriveled walnut, really, but it's done all the work. And it's really important that the thymus gland is allowed to do this work without interference for childhood. Just let the thymus get on, and if it comes across an infection, it'll deal with it and it'll remember. So just wanted to add that, how important it is not to interfere with a baby or a child's immune system.
Yeah. So vaccines are products that can cause so much injury that the manufacturers want immunity. Yeah. And don't forget, something like COVID-19, even after 5 years, they still have immunity on it. Okay. So vaccines, in my opinion, are kind of pseudoscience, and what you get is a repeat of lies and propaganda all the time. And that's what happens when young mum has a baby or goes back to the clinics and goes back for the regular checkups and vaccinations. She gets told that everything's fine, everything's safe. So if you could put the first one up, please.
Yeah. No problem.
Okay, so that is the list on the left-hand side of children from birth right the way up to 14 in the UK. So we keep saying that, seeing these lists in the States. This is what happens in the UK, according to the NHS in January 26. This goes back to. And I don't think it's changed since then. And what you'll notice now is it doesn't look to be very many. But then you look that we've got 6 in 1 and 4 in 1. So we've got a whole load of vaccinations that have never been tested en masse. All the adjuvants that are in there to supposedly help it work are then multiplied en masse and given in one go. Things like aluminium and what have you. We've got all these things that are given regularly. I mean, you've got Hep B that's given at birth, which is ridiculous, because that obviously is something that you get from sharing needles and your sexual behaviour. And what is a little baby going to be exposed to? Perhaps if mum's got Hep B, but that's very, very few people. So that basically is something that is given. And also the other thing that's given is vitamin K
Mm-hmm.
within a few hours of birth. You're supposed to give it within 6 hours. And I heard somebody explaining that they were told that if they don't have it, the baby could be dead and bled out by the time they get to the car park. You know, it's all scare tactics. So these are things that are given at birth, then at 8 weeks, and then at 12 weeks, 16 weeks. So it keeps being repetitive. Do you remember me saying that, you know, because it doesn't work, you've got to keep giving it? And then a year, and then 18 months. Okay. And at that point, we've given all of those, I haven't counted those up, but we've given all of those to a person, to a baby that doesn't have a properly developed brain or immune system. And all it's going to do is damage those two things.
I mean, that is quite shocking, Cheryl, because, you know, let's do the maths on this. And we did, because you've just said that up to 2 years, baby shouldn't have anything. You shouldn't interfere with anything up to 2 years. And we're counting there to 3 years, 4 months. And I know before we came on air, we made that a total of over 45, was it 45?
Yeah.
Before they're 4.
Yeah.
45
because
vaccinations.
You've got from 2 onwards, right the way through to 15, you've been given the flu jab every year. So on this goes. Okay.
So we worked out that in a lifetime, you'd be looking at over 60 jabs, or over being vaccinated for over 60 diseases.
Which is less than what the original list was in the States. But what the States have recently done, they've looked at different places in Europe and what their schedules are. And they've basically tried to match in with that, which is a lot less. It's a big reduction on the number of vaccines that they're saying you have to have compared with the original list. And therefore, it's a discussion. It's up to you, a discussion between you and your clinician, whether you go and have the rest of them as well. So they're not making certain ones compulsory to tie it in with Europe. So I think we're going to end up with more on our list than in the States. Anyway, there's also on the right-hand side there, it talks about older people and then the pregnant as well. So I'll leave that with people to ponder.
Pregnancy. So let's look at pregnancy for a minute, because you've done loads of work, because you've done the monitor and all the work with the tribunal and the MHRA and serious adverse reactions. So Cheryl, you and I are a similar generation where we were told not to take anything during pregnancy at all, bearing in mind thalidomide. And yet now we're giving pregnant women flu, whooping cough and RSV when they're pregnant. Am I correct?
That has been tested on pregnant women. And of course, the rules are Medicines Act 68 that you've got to have evidence of safety in pregnancy before it can be used.
Let's just leave that with you, everybody, that over 48 jabs before 4 years, over 60 in a lifetime, and 3 that are untested for safety and efficacy in pregnant women. That is a very sobering thought. And when I say jabs, I don't mean needles. I mean vaccinations against particular diseases. That is shocking and sobering.
Okay, so this is just something I want people to consider when they are responsible for a new life. Okay.
Wow.
Okay, can we have the next one up, please, Anne? So all I've tried to do is give you a bit more information. I mean, none of the vaccines, apart from Gardasil, or one of the Gardasil's, has been compared in placebo-controlled studies before they were launched. And then any new ones come along are then compared with the old vaccine that it's replacing, as if that has been placebo-controlled trialed, and it hasn't. So this is all down to ICANN and Aaron Siri, who's been brilliant, because he's used this information over and over again to show that they're not safe. They haven't been proven to be safe. And the table on the graphs on the right hand side there is basically showing you what level we were at in the diseases that we give vaccines for, and that basically the disease was on the floor, and that was due to sanitation and clean water systems, improvements in our lives and what we're taking into the body. And instead of claiming that vaccines have saved lives, it was already being saved. Okay, so I can leave that with you. Next one, please, Ant. So this is even more details, and this is showing as well in the one, well, the column that's headed safety review after injection. So that's how long it was followed up for. And as you can see, some are just days. Very few are more than 6 months. So that is to give the long-term effects of these vaccines. They're not followed up. And if
Sorry, hang on a minute. How can you give long-term effects if it's only 3 days that they've done safety review?
Well, you can't say anything about them. That's the point. But that's what they've done. Yeah, they've claimed safe and effective when they don't know because they haven't got the evidence. And this was Aaron Siri going to the American authorities and asking for the studies to show. And they tried to, Fauci tried to fob him off with a whole load of things that weren't linked to the childhood schedule, that didn't prove anything. It's all very poorly done. And of course, because they've got this indemnity, doesn't matter, does it? Doesn't matter if you cause injury.
It's interesting because I saw an X post that said, I can't remember which source it was. It was a university of some sort, and it says that vaccines will never control pandemics. Behaviour will. Remember that. Behaviour will. It's all big behavioural psyop.
It depends if you can believe that there is such a thing as a pandemic. That's another story for another day. But yeah, so the next one is basically. If we can move on. So if you actually look at the risk of death from a vaccine compared to the risk of death from the disease, sorry, I've said that the wrong way around. So the middle column there is the risk of disease and a death being caused, and the risk of vaccine death on the right-hand side. And you can see it's probably safer not to have them.
That's a very telling chart, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a very risky business. And obviously, I've kind of been following it up on my monitor stuff. And just quickly, I was, obviously, as you know, I gave, asked a question of the last board meeting Debbie and I went to. It was of Professor Henrietta Hughes, who's the Patient Safety Commissioner, who you think would be interested in safety, but she seems to work on things that are 20 years old, Debbie, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So she didn't want to answer my question, which was all to do with my 1 in 7, the 13.7% of the monitor participants that had a serious medical condition because of the vaccines. So I then got passed on because I kept saying, where's my answer? Where's my answer? So the MHRA said they would answer it themselves. And 4 months later to the day, I got an answer from Dr. Alison Cave, who's the MHRA's Chief Safety Officer. And she sent me the same old letter that I've seen so many times with cut and paste bits. My question was about the monitor. It was about 13.7% serious injury. It was about, 1 in 7 people having either death, life-saving problems, hospitalisation, disability, which might be permanent, and congenital conditions. That's the 5 categories of seriousness. That's what I was asking about. And what did she do? She didn't answer any of my questions. She never mentioned the monitor. She talked about
surprise.
And so I was really, really cross, having waited 4 months. So I've sent her a reply. She probably won't answer it, but I've sent her a reply.
She won't understand it, quite frankly.
And I basically asked her about the risk-benefit side of things. Because if you look at the data on risk benefit, basically this level has got to be unacceptable. Any normal person would say 1 in 7 has got to be unacceptable. And she keeps saying it outweighs benefits. Well, it doesn't protect against infection. It doesn't protect against transmission. It doesn't reduce hospitalisation and death. So what is the benefit of the COVID-19 vaccines? So I told her that they'd ignored the exponential rise in deaths that we got from the yellow card reports, if that's what she wanted to talk about. So there were 1,932 in 2021, from January to August 2021, due to the COVID-19 vaccines. And that in comparison is with 404. And that is the total number of deaths that have been seen with any vaccine since the year 2000 to August 2021. So it had gone from 404 for everything to 1,932 for one vaccine. So you've got to think about what is an unacceptable risk. You've got to think about the severity of the risk, and you've got to think about the reversibility of it. If it's quite serious, but you can put it right, then
there is no antidote, though, is there?
No antidote to this. And the other thing is, you can't mitigate against these serious medical events, because vulnerable patients can't be screened out. You've got no preventative measures, and there's no way to reverse the damage. So that would suggest it's a no-no. And actually, the FDA and the MHRA routinely withdraw drugs from the market for serious events well below 1%. We're talking about 13.7% here, in their own words, in their own.
Dr. Alison Cave, I hope you're listening. I hope somebody can get a snatch of this interview and maybe post it virally to Dr. Alison Cave, because I'm not even sure that she's going to understand your letter, quite frankly, well, Cheryl, let alone respond to it. And
well, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, which is a wonderful
Bill Gates pays her.
That's NICE, okay? So if you follow the NICE guidelines, it says if a drug serious adverse event rate hits 13.7% with no mitigation path, NICE would deem the cost and clinical burden of managing those 13.7% of serious health complications completely unviable for the NHS. The burden that puts on the NHS, which is probably why you can't get an appointment. So
can I just explain that Dr. Alison Cave is the safety officer of the MHRA, and the MHRA are almost, I'd say, pretty much controlled by Bill Gates. There's a huge conflicts of interests on the board. The previous but one CEO of the MHRA went straight to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We know Bill Gates pretty much owns the WHO. He's the biggest donor, and he has all sorts of influences upon the regulation of the MHRA. So it's likely that some of Alison Cave's wages will be coming from a source close to Bill and Melinda Gates, just saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's one of the authors on this report on the Monitor, and, you know, that took 4 years to come out. And that's what we said right from the start. If they're 86% funded by pharma, they should have declared a conflict of interest.
Exactly. I'm giddy with the conflicts of interest. We've got Microsoft on the board. We've got Raj Long, straight from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's all there in plain sight. In fact, we must remind everybody that MHRA board meeting is in July. We haven't had the link for the tickets yet, but don't worry, we'll be there. We need to talk about TCP as well.
Well, we are running very much out of time.
I know. Can I mention TCP really quickly?
Can I just play something really quickly before you do, because this links to what Cheryl is talking about anyway, and it's from Professor Angus Dalgleish, which you'll know, okay. And for those that are still on the fence regarding what is being discussed here right now, this might be something that convinces you otherwise. So just quickly, let's play this, and then we'll jump onto TCP, and then we'll probably have to bring it to a close because we're kind of out of time. But we've got loads to talk about. We're not got near it. Well, let's quickly play this.
In my view, it is that I started noticing that people who'd been stable with cancer, melanoma, for years started relapsing at the beginning of 22, and I asked for any reason why this might have occurred, and I noted they'd all been given boosters by their GPs, which if they'd asked me, I wouldn't have done that. And so you had to look around. What's the reason? Why would a booster allow a cancer to come back? Well, it turned out it's very simple, that boosters suppress the T cell response. The first two will increase it a bit, but a booster suppresses it. And that's exactly what we found. But then a group from Madrid published a wonderful paper saying T cell exhaustion after third COVID vaccine in cancer patients, with an incredible data. It showed it very, very clearly. And so therefore, any cancer suppressed and controlled by the immune system, you suspect might pop up after the booster. Surgeons noted their colorectal patients were very difficult to treat. They were presenting late and they were presenting young, and they found that these patients had all had the booster too, and they called a red flag. And I called a red flag that just the suspicion that the vaccine might be involved in the cancer.
Are there any studies that have linked the mRNA to cancer? Is there any sort of medical process that you can allude to that will back that up?
The strongest are the epidemiological studies, and the strongest was from Japan, a paper by Gibbo and his colleagues, which just had the raw data, and they noticed that the number of new cancer cases went up with each booster vaccine.
T cells.
Yeah. So both of them, my husband as well, have just been over in America at the Senate hearing with Ron Johnson. And Ron Johnson was sent information that showed that their equivalent of yellow card, their system, the people that put the algorithm together for that wrote to the FDA and said that this isn't going to pick up, this isn't good enough, this isn't going to pick up signals. And they gave them the new algorithm and they wouldn't use it. So they used their algorithm, and they've highlighted 49 key signals that were missed.
TCP?
TCP. Before I do TCP, can I just say I am incredibly shocked and saddened to have heard of the death of Christine Cotton, who was a senior statistician, who was a whistleblower and did amazing whistleblowing work surrounding clinical trials. I interviewed her a number of times. She took her own life about a week ago, and I just wanted to acknowledge the wonderful work that Christine Cotton did. So yeah, very quickly, moving on to TCP, right? Where is TCP? This is the strange case, the curious disappearance of TCP, as I'm finding with a lot of over-the-counter preparations. And I'm finding, you know what we say about doctors' receptionists? Well, I'm finding pharmacy assistants as the same. If you want a box of paracetamol, you're kind of inquisitioned. If you want a bottle of Sudafed or a bottle of Calpol, you're inquisitioned. And I noticed that TCP has disappeared, and you cannot get it on the high street. I mean, you used to pick it up from the corner shop, 2-3 quid. What does TCP stand for? Well, apparently it stands for trichloromphenol, although people are saying maybe it stands for transmission control protocol. Interestingly, TCP was first made by Pfizer, just so that you know, but a company called Omega took it over in 2004, and they bought a whole portfolio of over-the-counter medications for about 135 million euros. The owner of Omega Pharma, he's a shareholder in a football club. He's got hotels and goodness knows what. But taking back to TCP, so eventually couldn't get it on Amazon, couldn't get it anywhere apart from eBay, where it was £17 a bottle, folks. We all remember TCP, 3 or 4 quid a bottle, but 17 quid. When I ordered it, I received this questionnaire before it was going to be dispatched. I was told that I had to answer the questions, all of them, and if I didn't, it wouldn't be dispatched. So this is like TCP, really. But Cheryl, you've got something very quickly before we go, just to add on TCP, haven't you, with regards to gargling with it?
Yeah, well, it says on the bottle you can gargle with it and use it as a mouthwash. and it's apparently should never be swallowed because that's dangerous. So, you know, you're going to swallow a bit if you're gargling with it.
Wouldn't recommend that. Wounds and scratches, right?
Yeah, I just find it peculiar.
Anyway, what else are you seeing that's now you can't get? Or are you having problems with getting what you want? The things that used to be in the chemist that you could pick up off the counter and seem to be now behind the counter. Are you seeing differences in your prescription? Are you seeing changes? Do let us know, because I know we're running out of time. Run out of time.
We've run out of time, but I mean, there was so much. This all ties in. Everything that you were saying still all ties into the digital stuff, because AI is now being used for vaccines, for the cancer vaccine that the Moderna's involved with that one, and then you've also got, I think, operators in the UK were using AI to do theatre the other day, I believe. You know, so this is all linking in. Palantir is taking NHS data because they're saying that it will reduce waiting times. We can opt out of that, apparently, according to some social media posts. I don't know how true that is, so you'd have to check it out. But it's all linking to digital infrastructure, you know.
We're walking into it, walking into the prison.
It all is. And obviously we've been discussing in the past as well about the removal of juries and AI. And I thought we could end with a bit of a funny, as we always try and end a bit, because it's been difficult discussion today. There's a lot of difficult topics to discuss. We always like to try and end up on a funny, and the crew can never fail to put a good one. And here's David Lammy. He's got a new system. I don't know if you want to see it, but thanks for everyone that's tuned in. And we hope to be back next week. And I'll always try and make myself available if I'm able to. So we'll see. Hopefully next week at Wednesday at 1 o'clock. But thanks, Debbie, Cheryl, again.
Thanks, Ant.
You do. And let's listen to Lammy. He's always an interesting character, Lammy. You know, it's just
hit the subscribe and like, please, everybody. It really makes a huge difference.
It does. Take care, everyone.
Oh.
Good evening, comrades, allies, and people on complex journeys. As your proudly progressive Lord Chancellor, I can confirm that from tonight, we are scrapping judges, scrapping juries, and frankly, scrapping the whole dusty court system. Instead, every case in Britain will now be decided by one glorious creation of social justice engineering. LammyBot 3000. No wigs, no wood panelling, no 12 confused people from Wetherspoons. You simply stand on a mat while LammyBot scans your face, your X history, your Spotify playlists, and how quickly you posted a black square in 2020. It calculates your privilege score, cross-references your pronoun usage, and checks if you've ever typed the words, "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." If you have LammyBot gently flashes red and says, "Under the Equality, Diversity and Historic Tweets Act, you are structurally guilty." There is an appeal process. You may go free if you film a tearful apology video. Subscribe to my podcast and share it with the caption, "I'm learning and I'm listening." This is not the end of justice. This is justice upgraded to Lammy